Welcome to this journey through the remarkable story of David and Goliath, a timeless narrative that illustrates the power of faith and courage. This story, found in 1 Samuel chapter 17, isn't just a tale from the past. It resonates with anyone who has ever faced overwhelming challenges, those giants that seem impossible to overcome. We invite you to join us as we uncover the layers of meaning in this story, drawing from its lessons of resilience, inner strength, and divine support. David's unwavering faith transformed a seemingly hopeless situation into a victory, reminding us that when we stand strong in our beliefs, we too can conquer the giants in our lives. Throughout this series, we'll dive deeper into the characters, their motivations, and the profound spiritual significance that continues to inspire and guide us today. If you're interested in exploring more stories that illuminate faith, courage, and personal transformation, consider subscribing to our channel. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new content that helps you grow and overcome life's challenges. The Valley of Elah stretched vast and silent, a rugged expanse marked by rolling hills and rugged terrain that had seen countless battles. This was a place etched in history, known to generations as a site of decisive conflicts. Now, it bore witness to another gathering, as two great armies stood in a tense standoff. On one side were the Israelites, the chosen people led by King Saul, a towering figure who commanded respect yet struggled with his own doubts and insecurities. Opposite them, the Philistines, fierce and seemingly unstoppable, prepared to push forward and claim victory over their enemies. Between the two armies lay a no-man's land, silent but charged with tension, as if the very ground anticipated the clash to come. The standoff had reached a point of stagnation, with both sides holding back, each unwilling to make the first move. Then, from the ranks of the Philistines emerged Goliath, a figure so immense that he seemed to cast a shadow over the entire battlefield. Clad in gleaming armor, his mere presence sent waves of terror through the Israelite camp. Goliath was more than just a warrior. He was a symbol of dread, an embodiment of strength that none dared to oppose. His voice boomed across the valley, issuing challenges and taunts that echoed in the minds of the Israelites. Day after day, he dared them to send a man to face him, each refusal weakening their morale further and further. The Israelites were paralyzed, facing not only a physical threat, but also a challenge to their faith and loyalty to God. In this charged atmosphere, the conflict between belief and doubt, fear and faith, played out on an almost cosmic scale. The Israelites, bound by their faith yet crippled by fear, found themselves questioning their strength and their place under God's protection. The Philistines, arrogant in their power, saw victory as inevitable, believing that the might of their champion would crush any opposition. This standoff, more than just a battle for territory, was a test of faith, a divine challenge that would decide who truly held God's favor. In setting the scene in the Valley of Elah, readers can begin to grasp the magnitude of the struggle, the depths of despair, and the flicker of hope that David's eventual appearance would bring to his people. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, Goliath was a spectacle of brute force and intimidation. Every inch of him seemed crafted for war. His enormous stature, heavily muscled frame, and the ironclad armor that covered him from head to toe. His bronze helmet gleamed in the sunlight, casting an ominous glint that only added to his fearsome presence. Goliath's armor, a massive coat of bronze scales, seemed impenetrable, weighing as much as a grown man, while his legs were protected by greaves, thick shields that could stop any spear or sword. His javelin was as long as a weaver's beam, tipped with a spearhead that gleamed with deadly sharpness. Beyond his physical presence, Goliath wielded psychological power. Day after day, he strode into the valley, his voice a thunderous proclamation of defiance as he mocked the Israelites and their God. His words were like arrows, piercing the morale of the Israelite army, each insult a fresh wound to their courage. Goliath knew the effect he had on his enemies. He thrived on the terror he instilled, reveling in the way even the bravest warriors seemed to shrink back in his presence. The Israelites were not merely facing a giant. They were confronting their deepest fears, doubts, and feelings of inadequacy. Goliath's taunts extended beyond physical threats, for he represented all that seemed insurmountable and overwhelming in life. He was a figure who mirrored the fears, doubts, and challenges that every person faces. Just as Goliath's voice echoed in the valley, so do the voices of fear and doubt echo in our minds, challenging our resolve and weakening our faith. His presence forced the Israelites to question their belief in God's protection, testing the very foundation of their identity and faith. In seeing Goliath as more than just a warrior, but as a symbol of every giant that looms large in our lives, readers can begin to relate to the story on a personal level, finding inspiration in the idea that even the mightiest of giants can be defeated. David, a shepherd boy, was a striking contrast to the warriors of the Israelite camp. He was young, unassuming, and wore no armor. His strength was not in physical might, but in his unshakable faith in God. David's days were spent tending his father's sheep, leading them to pastures, and defending them from wild animals. His time in the fields was not merely a job, it was a period of training, not only of skill, but also of spirit. Alone with the sheep and the stars, David had come to know God in a personal, profound way, trusting in his protection and guidance in every circumstance. When a lion or bear came to threaten the flock, David had learned to defend them, not with a soldier's skill, but with a shepherd's courage and resourcefulness. When David arrived at the battlefield, he was not drawn by the promise of glory or reward. He came with a heart that was troubled by the defiance he witnessed, his spirit stirred by Goliath's taunts against the God of Israel. David was outraged, not because of the challenge itself, but because Goliath dared to mock the living God. Where others saw a giant, David saw a man who insulted the Creator. He approached the Israelite soldiers, his voice filled with righteous anger and conviction. He could not understand why they remained silent, why they allowed this man to continue dishonoring their God. When word reached King Saul that a young shepherd boy was willing to fight Goliath, David's faith shone brighter than the armor that weighed down the soldiers around him. David's confidence was not arrogance, it was faith. He did not trust in his own abilities, nor did he see himself as a mighty warrior. David's courage was rooted in his relationship with God, a faith that he had nurtured during his quiet, solitary days as a shepherd. He had faced lions and bears, and he knew that God had delivered him from each one. To David, Goliath was no different. His readiness to face the giant stemmed from his conviction that the battle belonged to God, and he would be but a vessel through which God's power would be shown. In David, readers see a reflection of unwavering faith, a reminder that strength does not lie in weapons or armor. but in the trust we place in a power far greater than ourselves. When King Saul offered David his own armor, David felt the weight of its unfamiliarity. The armor was heavy, restricting, and completely foreign to the young shepherd. David tried to walk in it, but each step felt wrong, unnatural. He realized that by wearing the armor, he would be conforming to someone else's method, relying on the protection of metal rather than the guidance of God. In that moment, David made a choice that was both practical and symbolic. He took off the armor, refusing to fight on Goliath's terms. Instead, he chose his sling, his staff, and 5 smooth stones from the stream. These were simple tools, ones he had used countless times in his work as a shepherd. To David, they represented not only his skills, but also his faith. By rejecting the armor, David demonstrated a powerful lesson in authenticity. He refused to adopt a method that did not align with who he was and what he believed in. He chose to face the challenge on his own terms, relying on his own strengths and, most importantly, on God's protection. David's choice encourages readers to embrace their unique strengths, to face their own giants without feeling pressured to adopt the strategies or expectations of others. In his simple approach, David teaches us that faith and authenticity are the greatest weapons, reminding us that we are enough as we are when we place our trust in something greater than ourselves. As the two figures approached each other on the battlefield, the tension was palpable. Goliath, towering and armored, sneered at the sight of David, a mere boy with no shield or sword. His laughter was cruel, his words filled with disdain as he mocked David, deriding his lack of armor and weapons. But David remained undeterred. With a calm that belied his youth, he proclaimed his faith, declaring that while Goliath came with sword, spear, and javelin, he came in the name of the Lord Almighty. David's voice rang out across the valley, his words a bold testament to his belief that the God of Israel was with him. Then, with a swift, practiced movement, David reached into his pouch, took a stone, and placed it in his sling. His movements were smooth, confident, born of countless hours spent practicing in the fields. As he released the stone, it flew with a speed and precision that seemed almost supernatural, guided not just by David's skill, but by divine intervention. The stone struck Goliath's forehead with unerring accuracy, embedding itself and bringing the giant crashing to the ground. The Philistine army, shocked and bewildered, could only watch as their champion lay defeated. In this miraculous victory, David's faith was vindicated. It was not the strength of his arm, nor the sharpness of his weapon, but his faith in God that won the day. Through David, readers see that no obstacle is too great, no giant too powerful when we rely on God's strength. This battle serves as a reminder that God often works through unlikely means, achieving great victories through humble, faithful servants who dare to trust in Him completely. In understanding the story of David and Goliath, we encounter a profound lesson about the nature of faith and authenticity. David's victory over Goliath goes beyond physical prowess or skill. It reveals the deeper truth that God looks not at outward appearance or worldly power, but at the heart, at inner conviction, and at faith. David was not a soldier nor trained in battle, and he didn't possess armor or a sword like the seasoned warriors around him. He was a young shepherd with little experience in combat, yet he was chosen because of his unwavering belief in God's power and his authenticity in embracing his unique gifts. This story is a reminder that our value doesn't lie in what the world deems as strength or qualification, but rather in our willingness to be true to ourselves and faithful to God's guidance. Just as David picked up his sling and stones with confidence, we too are encouraged to embrace the strengths and abilities that God has placed within us, however small or insignificant they may appear. It's not the external tools that define our success, but the faith that propels us forward. David teaches us that true strength is born from authenticity and trust in God's plan. Rather than trying to wear someone else's armor or emulate others, we are invited to be our genuine selves, to honor our distinct paths, and to rely on the strength that comes from aligning with God's purpose. Embracing this level of authenticity enables us to live boldly and with confidence, knowing that we are equipped precisely as we need to be for the challenges we face. Just as God chose David because of his heart, He calls each of us to step forward with the same courage, trusting in the gifts and strengths that are uniquely ours. When we look at the story of David, we can see how his experience resonates with our own lives. The giants we face may not be towering soldiers, but they are no less daunting. They come in the form of fears, overwhelming goals, personal struggles, or even uncertainties about the future. Each of us has our own Goliath, those challenges that appear insurmountable and intimidate us, sometimes leaving us feeling powerless or unprepared. But David's response to Goliath provides a powerful example of what it means to face these challenges with unwavering faith and courage. David did not hesitate or shrink back. He stepped forward, fully trusting that God would guide him and deliver him from harm. This story inspires us to face our own giants, not through our strength alone, but with a deep reliance on God's support. Faith becomes our shield and courage our weapon, allowing us to confront whatever obstacles lie in our path. When we recognize that our challenges can be opportunities to grow closer to God, we transform fear into faith. By turning to God for guidance and strength, we learn to see the blessings within each challenge, knowing that even in the darkest of moments, we are not alone. Like David, we are called to see challenges as a chance to deepen our faith and to trust that God's plan is ultimately for our good. Each time we face a Goliath, we grow stronger in spirit and more connected to God's presence in our lives. Our courage grows not because the obstacles are smaller, but because our faith grows larger. The giants we face may still be intimidating, but with God on our side, we can approach them with a sense of purpose, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity to step more fully into our potential and to witness God's power at work. As we reach the end of David's story, we see a powerful testament to the strength that comes from faith. David's journey is more than just a tale of a young boy overcoming impossible odds. It's a symbol of what can happen when we trust in God over our abilities. David's victory over Goliath was not merely a display of courage, but a demonstration of his faith in God's might. This is the same faith that each of us can hold on to, knowing that with God, all things are possible. David's story reinforces that we are capable of conquering any challenge, no matter how overwhelming it may seem, as long as we hold steadfast to our faith. Our true strength does not come from physical power, social status, or worldly abilities, but from the faith that God is guiding us and that we are empowered through Him. When we face our giants, it is this unwavering trust that sustains us. we are reminded that victory is not just a physical triumph, but a spiritual one, born from a heart that trusts and believes in God's promises. This faith-based strength carries us through life's battles, allowing us to rise above adversity with a renewed sense of purpose. By seeing ourselves as vessels for God's work, we can approach each challenge with hope and conviction, knowing that victory lies not in our own might, but in God's ever-present support. Just as David achieved the impossible through faith, we too can find courage and determination to confront and overcome the giants in our lives. This journey teaches us that our true power lies in our relationship with God, and through that connection, we are capable of anything. The journey of David and Goliath inspires each of us to take actionable steps in our lives. It's a call to embrace our faith with courage and to recognize the giants in our lives that need to be confronted. This means identifying those areas that may hold us back or intimidate us, whether they're fears, personal goals, or unresolved struggles, and facing them with a faith rooted in God's strength. It's time to reflect on the unique gifts, strengths, and experiences that God has given each of us and to use them confidently, as David used his simple stones and sling. Each of us carries stones within us, those qualities that are our own and are meant to be used with intention and courage. By embracing these gifts, we equip ourselves to tackle any challenge. The story of David invites us to trust that we are never alone in our battles. God stands beside us, guiding us toward victory. Like David, we are called to step into life's challenges with an unwavering belief that we too can overcome our giants through faith. This journey is about more than winning battles. It's about claiming the victory that faith brings, empowering us to live boldly, authentically, and with a heart grounded in God's love. As you reflect on your own stones and the unique gifts God has placed within you, consider joining us on this journey of faith and empowerment. By subscribing to our channel, you'll stay connected to a community that supports and inspires each other in overcoming life's challenges with the same unwavering belief that David had. Together, let's continue to discover the victories faith can bring, empowering us all to live boldly and grounded in God's love. Subscribe today and join us as we walk this path of faith and strength side by side.